For millions of Americans, planning a vacation in Europe means following literally in the footsteps of one man. Rick Steves is a backpacker who's become a business tycoon by writing about life on the road. As we found out when we went to Europe with him, legions of travelers use his guidebooks like Bibles. There are so many Rick Nicks, as his followers call themselves, that a review from Steves can make or break a tourist attraction from Barcelona to Budapest. You could say he's a professional tourist, on the road about 4 months a year, chasing down tips to make the perfect trip.
Rick Steves, I'm checking some information in my guidebook.
That means poking, prodding, and scribbling his way through as many hotels and cafes as he can cram into a day.
Oh man, that's a great hotel.
Trying to find lumpy mattresses and leaky faucets before his readers do. On a 3-day trip to the Netherlands and Germany, he showed us what it takes to stay a step ahead.
I'm over here making mistakes, running down bad leads, and trying to assemble information so people who like my style of travel can get it right every time.
Some might call his style of travel eccentric. He calls it blitzing.
Yeah.
There's a neues Denkmal for the Zigeuner. Gorgeous view, man, isn't that something?
City circles and the yellow buses.
Oh, that's wonderful.
He's on a constant quest to take his readers off the beaten path.
Tiny door.
What's the key for enjoying travel?
One of the fundamental things is, if it's not to your liking, change your liking. This is a chance for us to immerse ourselves in something that's different.
Is it more important to see the sights, or is it more important to connect with the people?
What gives your trip the magic memories is connecting with people. Anybody can get a list of famous sites and they can take a taxi from site to site and check them off. You don't need my guidebook for that. But if I can put you into a magic situation on the west coast of Ireland or in a little pub in Athens, those are magic moments that I think really make your trip, I think, more successful.
That's meant amazing success for Steves himself. He has 30 travel guides that sell about 500,000 copies a year. His guide to Italy is the best-selling travel book in the country. The books led to a booming tour business, a signature line of luggage, and a TV show on PBS.
Hi, I'm Rick Steves with more of the best of Europe.
All of which has made him a celebrity.
I feel like I know you. I'm like, there's Rick. When I saw you, I was like, there's Rick. I was like, what? I'm like, Rick.
When we were with him in Europe, it seemed there wasn't a street he could walk down without being recognized.
Do you want to get a picture taken?
Yes.
Are you having a good trip?
We're having a wonderful trip, thanks to your book.
His fans treat him more like a rock star than a travel writer.
Can I get you to autograph my book?
I'd be happy to, yeah. Okay.
All right, thanks.
They actually have a name for themselves. Rick Nicks.
Any hot tips for me in Cortona?
And everyone knows the name Rick Steves in Edmonds, Washington, the tiny town near Seattle where he was raised and still lives with his wife and 2 teenagers. He's built his company there into a $20 million a year empire with 60 employees who primarily gather information for his books.
Yeah, in our guidebooks we have all the contact information for hotels in those cities.
And lead tours. But Rick Steves isn't just selling a way to see the world, he's selling a world view, too.
This is all about experience. I don't want to sit on a bus and look at things through a tinted window and hear some guide tell me the stories in 3 languages. I want to be out there in the market. I want to be ripped off when I buy my Belgian endives, okay? I want to learn about that.
Are you promoting the experience, or has this now turned into big business?
This is big business. On the other hand, my mission, my calling is to teach Americans how to travel smartly.
What do Americans get from going overseas?
Americans who travel thoughtfully get a broader perspective and a better understanding of what this planet is truly like.
You think that's something we're lacking?
America is desperately lacking that understanding. America doesn't know what's out there.
And he says the world doesn't really know Americans either.
I think we tend to be ethnocentric. It's the old ugly American problem. We're not bad people, but the bigger your culture is, the more you tend to be ethnocentric. Not just Americans. There's ugly Russians, ugly Germans, ugly Japanese. You don't find ugly Danes and ugly Portuguese and ugly Belgians because they
don't have the arrogance.
They don't have, well, they know that the world can't be, that their norms are not the world norms because they're so small. You haven't been to Rome since
1949.
Rick Steves sees each American tourist as a potential ambassador and hopes to turn them into what he calls temporary Europeans. To do that, he says, they have to leave their comfort zone and cultural baggage behind.
I'm going to be talking here until 1 o'clock.
Immersing Americans in other cultures is his travel gospel, and he spreads it all over the country in lectures like this one.
I just find that good travelers like Italy. Bad travelers are all upset about traffic jam and tempers and odors and stray hairs and this kind of thing, you know. You're going to find odors and you're going to find stray hairs in Italy. And with the right attitude, you're going to love it, okay?
Steve's love affair with travel began in 1969 when his parents took him along on a business trip to Europe. He says seeing the sights really opened his eyes.
I got over there and it was fascinating. I mean, different pop, one-armed bandits in the hotel lobbies, women with hairy armpits. I mean, it was a wonderland for a 14-year-old kid.
You discovered that?
Oh, for me it was somebody opened up a door that you can all of a sudden, there's another place you can go with your life. You can leave your country.
4 years later, Steves convinced his best friend, Gene Openshaw, that they should hit the road. This time, no parents allowed.
He talked me into it, did a big sales pitch,
Sales pitch to the parents?
to my parents, and said, this is going to be a great cultural experience, and Gene's going to learn so much, and it'll be like a university education.
The day after high school graduation, they left for Europe. With a few $100s in their pockets, they toured 15 countries in 10 weeks on a trip they took to calling Europe Through the Gutter.
We learned from the School of Hard Knocks, and for the first couple of days we were sneaking into hotels and we were stealing lunch from breakfast and we were pathetic street urchins in Europe, you know. And then we got our act together, we got it down, and by the end of that trip we were good travelers.
He was a great tour guide.
Even then?
Even then.
At the very beginning?
Yeah. He'd read about some place, he'd read about some castle and say, we gotta go to this castle, it's on the Rhine. You know, and I'd say, but Rick, we're in Spain, that's like 300 miles away. Yeah, but we can take the overnight train and we'll be there, and we would.
Steves was a natural. At age 20, he started teaching travel classes and recruiting customers for a local tour operator. That's when it dawned on him that he really could make travel pay. In 1978, he set out to lead his own tour with 7 women in a minibus and an unusual plan.
I used to have a personal mission to inflict upon every one of my tourists, the people who took my bus tours, a terrible, miserable hotel that other people would find acceptable, but that was not comfortable enough for them.
What were they supposed to learn from staying at a bad hotel?
They're supposed to learn that most of the world would love to have a roof over their head.
30 years, thousands of miles, and millions of dollars later, Rick Steves is still taking the train, still eating out of a plastic bag, and doing his laundry in hotel sinks. But now there's a difference. Do you ever go on trips and you're not working, you just are there as a tourist to enjoy yourself?
I wish I could, but when I'm in Europe, I love my work so much, I just work. How are you doing?
And many European merchants work feverishly to get a recommendation in one of his books.
How are you doing? How are you? Nice to see you. Nice to see you too. Beautiful day for a canoe ride.
Maëlle Trump was thrilled when he printed a blurb about her canoe tours near Amsterdam. He's expanding the blurb into a full recommendation in his next book, but only after taking the tour himself. Rick, is this everything you thought it would be?
Yes, this is everything I hoped it would be.
3 hours, $30, and you get Vermeer paintings all along the way.
You get the real thing, that inspired Vermeer, yeah.
How important is it for you as a tour guide to have this written up in a Rick Steves book?
Very important, because that is how I get the Americans coming to do this tour.
I'm blitzing. Let's go.
As the Blitz rolled on, we wound up in Amsterdam's red light district. The oldest profession is legal here, so in his Amsterdam book, there's a map showing where to find prostitutes and cheaper prostitutes. He also highlights cafes where marijuana is on the menu.
It's not my responsibility to shield my tender Americans from something that is a reality here.
Do you tell your readers how much it costs to buy a joint, how much it costs to...
Sure, it's $3 for a joint.
Do you tell them the best places to go?
Well, my readers are older, so I'll tell them where older people would be more comfortable.
What makes him successful?
I think it's his average Joe-ness, his Americanness. I think when people see Rick, and he is, I think, real kind of genuinely down-to-earth, almost goofy guy, and when they see he can go to Europe, well, I could do that.
You know, the old church, they wouldn't let us in. The lady got mad at me.
He says occasionally there is a downside to his influence on thousands of Ricknicks, like what he sees happening in Rothenburg, Germany, a picture postcard town he almost single-handedly put on the map for American travelers.
I see more tourists coming with my book in hand, and the locals, can crank up the quaint and serve up the cliches, and suddenly all these tourist crowds are trampling the little bit of reality that I was trying to catch.
But Steve says the American stampede he helped create won't stamp out the Europe he loves. You must have shorthand, I guess, for some of the cultures, some of the countries. So I'll rattle off some nationalities. The French.
Complicated.
The Italians.
Lovable chaos.
Germans.
Achtung.
The English.
Proper.
The Irish.
Lots of talk, lots of beer, lots of love.